Data onboarding has been a time-consuming and manual process for too long. Between spreadsheet templates, writing custom scripts, and implementation services, getting data from a customer into your software takes a long time and costs a lot of money. It's a critical manual step in your customer's onboarding process, with no easy way to get it done. Until now. Flat File Concierge automatically converts, validates, and maps all of your data into the specific format you need. In just a few clicks, your data goes from messy and unorganized to validated and ready to use. All with no code required, so you'll be set up in minutes. Need to collaborate with your customer? Don't email sensitive data back and forth. Flat File Concierge lets you invite your customer to a secure, real-time shared workspace. Now you can give your customers a seamless data onboarding experience and save hours doing it. Join the hundreds of businesses who use Flat File to solve their data chaos and are focused on creating long-term value for their customers and their business. Start your free trial now.
Hello and welcome back to the Customer Success Festival. I hope you're enjoying today's presentations. Just a quick reminder that you can join fellow attendees in our Slack community. Just follow the link at the top of the event website. And now, on to our next speaker.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Lemire, and welcome to our session on scaling customer success today. So this is a recording, but I will be on, most likely already in the room today watching this recording alongside of you and available for Q&A after the recording. So without further ado, let's hop in to scaling customer success. So a little bit of my background just to have a sense of why I'm talking about this today. This is sort of my resume in logo format. So I actually started my career in the music industry working for Blue Note Records. I myself am a musician. I sing classical choral music and try to teach my kids piano and guitar when I have the opportunity to. So if I love talking customer success, but I also love talking about jazz, classical music, hip hop, soul, R&B, music from China, music from India, music from Africa. So if you've got an interest in music, chances are I'd be happy to talk to you about it. From there, I've moved on to work in ad agencies, working at Yahoo to help stand up our Yahoo India office. At HubSpot, I launched and ran our professional services program. And then before Toast, most recently worked to launch the customer success program at an early stage startup in Boston called Notarize, and also lead the customer support team there. At Toast, I was brought on to lead our restaurant success team, which is essentially our customer success management team, and find a way to scale that. Which we were doing, as you guys all know, with COVID, the impact on the restaurant community was profound at this time last year, and so we had to say goodbye to a lot of our CSMs when that took place. At which point, I took over our education team, and am now launching a new team that's just focused on proactive and scaling adoption of our content or of our product to our customers. So that's a little about me. One of the things I hear as I work with friends and colleagues around customer success is sort of this phrase: I'd love to scale my CS program and make it more proactive than reactive, right? Chances are, if you're here at this conference, this is one of your missions, would be my guess, is something you'd like to do. And I think one of the first things I talk about when talking about scale is making sure that you know what scale means to your organizations, because it's one of those relative terms that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so just making sure you know how comfortable you are and what the definition of good looks like when it comes to have you actually scaled. Does it mean your CSMs go from a book of business of 30 accounts to 100 accounts? Or does it mean you can get rid of most of your CSM organization and have it all be tech touch as opposed to human touch, right? So first, I think that definition is something you need to make sure you're comfortable with your own organization. So the way I'm going to frame our conversation today after that sort of table set is around the three big challenges that I see at different organizations that I've personally faced, and in some instances still wrestling with, but that I've seen in other organizations that I've worked at or that I've worked with friends and colleagues at as they launch their own customer success programs. And those are the difference between proactive and reactive work and the ability to scale each one of them is very different. And what I've found is it's much easier to scale proactive work as you're beginning this type of engagement than it is to scale reactive work. The second thing we'll talk about is that scaling takes data to drive automation, right? That's duh, everyone is familiar with that. But the access to data takes infrastructure and partnership. And that's where a lot of folks tend to fall down is like, I know I need that data, but how do I actually get it? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the last part is that customer communication at scale is more than just emails. And I think certainly as we head into the 2020s, the old concepts of automation and scaling, which were very email oriented and driven, aren't as effective anymore. And I think being in the hospitality, having customers in the hospitality industry, that is way amplified for our group, right? Restaurant owners are not sitting in front of their email inboxes all day. But I think the more that we evolve as a industry, we're going to see less and less people wanting to engage with their software partnerships or vendors through just email, right? So I think there is still a role for humans, and that's sort of why I wanted you to think about the definition of scale before we rock. So you can scale proactive work much easier than reactive work. So when I joined Toast, we had our CSMs were 100% reactive. Stop me if you've heard this one before. 100% reactive, spending a lot of time putting out fires from their customers, and the fires would come either directly to them from the customers, up through the customer support team, or from the sales reps that the customer had originally worked with coming through to them. And so they had no ability to do any proactive work. And it's tough to begin scaling reactive work and changing your install base's behavior to say, I know you're used to having a very hand-holding relationship when you run into problems, but now just use this self-help resource, right? It's a path, but it is tough to do that. It is much easier to begin with saying, here's something new and additive for you, and that is coming to you in a technical way or in a self-help way. Before we even begin to experiment with any of that, we needed to give our CSMs the opportunity to take advantage of proactive time with their customers. And so this is sort of the first recommendation I have here, which is ID what is required of a CSM for reactive work versus a support or care team, then move it. And so often what I see is that the CSM group can become an escape valve for the customer care team if it gets a little too hot or the customer's emotion rises, and it's well, they threatened to churn, so it's going to the customer, to the CSM, which is probably true, right? You want to keep an eye on retention. That's ultimately the primary metric that the CSM is responsible for. But I don't think all companies give enough credit or belief in the abilities of their support or customer care teams. The support teams can, in most cases that I've seen, handle sort of tougher calls, tougher escalations within that organization. And if you give them similar tools in their arsenal that the CSMs have available to them, like credits, for instance, with some protection on when they're able to deliver them, they can resolve more of those escalation issues than you might have guessed initially. So making sure that what is the work that really can be handled by the support team and making sure it stays there to free up some time for the CSMs is really that first step, so that they can begin some of that proactive engagement themselves to figure out what's working, what can be automated, and what data is needed to take that action. So once that's done, you can dive in and make proactive work at least 10% of their goal, right? So if you're attending this, it's the middle of February, you're probably, hopefully, starting to think a little bit about your Q2 OKRs at this point, and the goals for your group for Q2. Now's the time. If you can start having those conversations with your support team and setting that up and say, in Q2, we're going to put 10% proactivity on the heads of our CSMs. And then not all work, thinking about what that proactive engagement looks like. And I think so often sort of the well-trod playbook of the QBR is where we go, right? We know that it's sort of, everyone knows how to build and deliver QBR, customers understand it. But it really isn't the best way to engage a customer proactively at every organization. Now, there are certainly enterprise customers who would expect that, but if you're working with an SMB community, they don't all need that formal type of readout slide deck presentation. Most often, they want to know what features they're not taking advantage of that they could do better with, and how they compare to other users within the product, right? And that can be delivered much in a much lighter format. So that's where I'd start, is to think about what is the proactive work that you want to drive with your customers. And we'll talk a little bit about the metrics that you can be in control of with that on the next slide. And then lastly is making sure that you're documenting those proactive engagements within your CRM or whatever CSM piece of software your team uses to run their day-to-day. Because we want to track the impact and efficacy of it. And if they're just logging activities the exact same way that they would from a reactive standpoint, you won't be able to measure how valuable this proactive work is, so that you can make decisions downstream on what data should be prioritized to take action on it. The next topic is the data itself, and making sure we need data to drive automation, and the data, getting access to data takes infrastructure and partnerships internally. So the first thing I'd want you to consider here is confirm what type of data or type of action you want to scale via automation. So is it renewals? Is that something that is the touch and engagement with the customer is light enough where you could provide them with here's your first year, here's your 1 year option for renewal, here's your multi-year option for renewal. This comes with a automatic 10% discount. This one comes with a no discount, and sort of take that first crack from a renewal standpoint. Is it account changes, right? Is there work where we're handling sort of the reactive nature, and the customers are working with their CSMs on a regular basis for something that is fairly sort of paperwork oriented that we can automate? Or is it product adoption, right? We want to drive product adoption because we believe that will increase retention. It will it will decrease the likelihood to see downsells on specific features that you may have as options within your software. Or it may just increase the likelihood for referrals, the more the customer is seeing benefit from the product, right? There's a lot of impact that can come from just focusing on product adoption. And that's where we're focusing in right now on Toast, is making sure our customers are using to the fullest extent the products that they have. So making sure you understand what type of data you want and need to take the action on the metrics that you want to move. The next is making sure that the triggers are prescriptive to your CSMs so that you can then convert them into automation. So this is a lesson learned at Toast, is we built the data around product adoption. We partnered with our product team to do that, which I'll talk a little bit next on the next bullet. And I gave my team Looker dashboards, right? So here, filter by your name. You can see your entire install base. You can see all of the adoption to varying degrees on every feature, customer by customer. And the team didn't really know what to do with that, right? That's okay. So I see this customer has a score of 50. This customer has a score of 70. When do I take action with the customer? So just giving them information or access to data isn't enough. I think you need to go one step further and say, be incredibly prescriptive and say, when a customer is experiencing this degree of adoption, that's unacceptable. So you need to reach out to them. And so we can move it from just access to data to, if the data is below this threshold, automatically create a case just the same way they would potentially be working out of a reactive case or activity that they had been previously. Once you've done that and you're able to verify that through the human outreach, that this proactive engagement is having the impact that you would expect it to have on your customers, or that you hope it would have. Then you have the proof of concept, and you're able to scale that by handing that to sort of potentially a marketing team, or a customer marketing team, or a product marketing team, where they're thinking more about the resources they have to scale that. And we'll talk about, not just relying on email on the next slide, but sort of proof of concepting with your CSMs, and then handing that over to automation. And then the last is the data automation, and the infrastructure and partnership is not just a CS only job. And I think this is where a lot of folks within our industry can get frustrated or run into roadblocks, is building out these data triggers alone. Because they don't have access to the product, easy access to the product usage databases. And if they do, they may not have the skill set on converting that database into an actionable case in Salesforce, for instance. And so to begin this journey, you're going to really need to get buy-in from the product team to make sure that they're instrumenting the tool in such a way that gives you the data points that are going to be valuable for a trigger standpoint, and from the operations team, or whomever manages the Salesforce instances, or is the Salesforce admin, or the HubSpot CRM admin, or whatever Gainsight admin, whomever you're working with there. Because if it's just on the CS team alone, it'll be really, really difficult to get done, because you don't have the correct access, I've seen before. So making sure you're getting the data, and making sure you're building the infrastructure alongside of the partnerships across your larger organization. Lastly, customer communication at scale is more than just emails. So I think so often when we hear customer success at scale, it's almost assumed that the customers are no longer engaging on a regular basis with humans on your team, which shouldn't be the case. I think there is an opportunity for human touch. It's just prioritizing the type of human touch that has the most impact for the customers that need that. So we talked about that proactive engagement, and there may be instances as you go through those experiments on, driving up your product adoption, that the customer can get all the videos, or all the emails, or all the SMS text messages in the world, but a certain persona within your install base requires that human conversation. It makes a big difference to them. So you could prioritize that, and then some of the lighter work hand over to Tech Touch. So I'd encourage you, as you're going through the experiments, to identify what does require human touch, and is it providing the value that you would hope it to earn that human touch, and then what can go through Tech Touch. I'm a big fan of meeting your customers in the product. This has been a game changer for us in getting the in-product messaging to our customers for proactive engagement and our ability to scale. So of course we use tools like HubSpot and Marketo to drive traditional email campaigns and email automation to our customers. But in the past, more recently, I've been using tools like app queues and Pendo in our software to communicate to customers directly once they trigger an adoption threshold. And so with those tools, we're able to provide either a click-by-click guide. Here are the steps you need to take to increase that adoption, or push an in-app video to them. And this is why I like to start with the human engagement first, to experiment, because we'll find talk tracks that work really, really well. We'll find that one sort of rock star CSM who can just get any customer to take the action regardless of the concerns they have. And we'll record a video of them, put it into Pendo, push it to the customers that have hit that trigger, that say they need that type of engagement from us. As well as testing SMS messages as well. So I think I would challenge yourselves to try to find ways to get in the product, and those tools, like I mentioned, Pendo and app queues, have been really valuable for us to do that without requiring a ton of partnership from engineering and waiting on their sprint cycles to get that done. Slack can also be wonderful in engaging with customers and using that to recommend certain actions to be taken with them. I like that because more so than an email or a phone call, your CSMs can have 5 or 6 Slack conversations at the same time with customers. Whereas for email, it's not as easy to do that, or certainly not with phone. But beware, if you haven't taken the early step of giving the customers the paths for their reactive needs that are working well, opening Slack up to your customers can cause a lot of internal frustration with your CSMs, because now it's just a more direct path to them for all of their fire drills. And Slack sort of does have that expectation of a faster response time than even email. So I think about where your customers are spending their time. So for us, working with the restaurant industry, they're not using Slack. Restaurant owners are not spending their time there, but they are spending their time in our system, and that's where we've seen Pendo present itself to be incredibly powerful for us. So for next steps, I always like to, as a good CSM, right, despite my poo-pooing of the QBR, I always like to close the next steps, especially here. I think people attend these sessions to be inspired, but also I know I've taken notes on this is what I need to do when I get back. So I encourage you all to take an audit of the work your CSMs are doing and see if there's any reactive work that can stay with the support team or can be solved by giving the customer the ability to self-serve, like making those account updates. Confirm what actions you want to scale and make sure the data is in place that you can push to your CSMs to start. And so probably where you're going to need to start is with your fellow leaders in product. Make sure they're bought into the mission here. And then support you in instrumenting that data flow. Next is to create a way for your CSMs to document their proactive work and push them to start in Q2. It won't be perfect. This is the focus on scaling, the focus on certainly proactive work is there can be a ton of analysis by paralysis by analysis rather, until everything is perfect and you have everything lined up exactly the way that you expect it to. A lot of this is let's get started and optimize. So get to a place where your CSMs can take action and then start to optimize from there before you try to design the most perfect system. Making sure that those partnerships are strong internally. Find what proactive work is doing well once you've launched that, and then turn on automation that's more than just an email. So if you don't have in-app messaging systems, I would encourage you to look at some of the options that are available to you today. If you're not using SMS, and you think that was a better fit for your customers, if there's an opportunity to use Slack, think about different methods of communication over than just email, and then track the impact of the scaled work and the proactive work on NPS, on adoption, on retention, to make sure that all of the hard work that you're putting in to develop this program allows you, come budget season next Q4, to make a case for more infrastructure, more budget to support this, as you're able to grow the books of business potentially for your CSMs. So thank you. I'm going to hop off this recording now and be available for questions. So let's keep chatting. I'm in the Future of SaaS Slack. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I love to talk about CS. I know I'm still learning a lot myself. So I look forward to connecting with you. Thanks.